Hey everybody, and welcome back to Super Taku Bros. It's your host Jolemonus with my buddy John. Say hello, John.
Hey, how's everybody doing this week?
And today I decided we missed some shit with our introduction episode. We just expected you guys to know everything and anything that we were talking about, and that's not fair. So we're gonna start over from scratch, and we're gonna explain to you what Takusatsu is, or Taku for short. Well, Wikipedia says it's a Japanese term for live action film or television drama that makes heavy use of special effects. Tokusatsu entertainment often deals with science fiction, fantasy, or horror, but films and television shows and other genres can sometimes count as tokusatsu as well. The most popular types of tokusatsu include kaiju monster films like Godzilla and Gamera films, and superhero TV serials like Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, Metal Heroes, and mech dramas like Giant Robo. Now, so there's your background. So obviously it's Japanese craziness, but I didn't know till doing my little bit of research that Godzilla is considered tokusatsu.
I did not know that, actually.
Yeah, that's some crazy stuff. I mean, it kind of makes sense, John, if you think about it, considering like Power Rangers always hopping in their Zords and fighting Godzilla-sized monsters.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess it counts. But here in America, the most common form of taku is Power Rangers, and outside of Godzilla, that's all most Americans know about. This show is going to mainly focus on two forms of taku: Super Sentai, the Japanese counterpart to Power Rangers, and Kamen Rider, which only ever made a U.S. appearance in two incarnations. Masked Rider in the 90s, which was actually an offshoot of Power Rangers, and Kamen Rider Dragon Knight in the 2000s. Unlike Power Rangers, Kamen Rider flopped hard. The first time due to poor writing and toy sales, and the second time due to really poor availability and also toy sales. Yeah, did you ever even hear of Kamen Rider Dragon Knight?
I think one of them was on Netflix not too long ago,
Dragon Knight was on Netflix?
or one of them was on Master. I think it might have been Master Rider was on Netflix.
Oh, I didn't know that.
One of them was on Netflix for sure.
Huh, crazy. Yeah, I watched Masked Rider when it first came out, but the acting was so damn bad. I mean,
Didn't
good.
it come on Kids WB? Was it on Kids WB?
No, that was Dragon Knight.
Okay, that was Dragon Knight. Okay.
Yeah, and that was about the time like Kids WB was damn near dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kamen Rider Dragon Knight was released on a dying TV network during the Saturday morning cartoon slot, at a time when Saturday morning cartoons were dying out, so it was poorly released. And it was so poorly released that the final episode of the series was only viewable online on the dying network's website. And as for the toy sales, well, the toys were only available at Toys R Us and had like zero marketing, which is a damn shame. Because like, how do you expect a show to survive with no fucking marketing? I never remember seeing like any commercials for Dragon Knight.
I don't either. Uh, I can't. I don't think I've ever even seen any of the American toys.
Yeah, they had like a very small section in Toys R Us. I remember. Oh yeah, backstory. I live in Ohio. John lives in Georgia, and here in Ohio at Toys R Us, they had like one tiny 4 foot section like in the same aisle as Power Rangers, and it was fucking chocked full of Kamen Rider shit, and that stuff just sat.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't market it, you can't sell it.
Well, and it wasn't like horrible, but it was definitely like way shittier quality than its Japanese counterpart. Because like one of the things that Kamen Rider Dragon Knight did was he used like cards and shit to access powers, and the cards they used for the American counterparts were just straight fucking garbage. They looked like they were printed out on like really shitty printer paper that barely had any like oomph to it. Like you could rip this shit just by looking at it wrong, and
Yeah.
it was meant to be used in a toy over and over again, so you were damn near guaranteed to break the poor thing. But honestly, in my opinion, Dragon Knight was a pretty decent show. But like we just said, like how can you expect a show to succeed with zero marketing, uneasy access to the product, and make the show itself damn near impossible to watch on a regular basis? It never even got syndicated. Like they would air one episode on the Saturday, and then you either watched it in order or you didn't watch any of it because they never reran it. But as we hinted last week, today's main topic is Kamen Rider Zero. And to get us started for that, I figure I'd do a little bit of background on what Kamen Rider is as a whole, so you guys can understand a little bit more why we like it. So here we go. Kamen Rider as a franchise began in 1971 with this first series just called straight up Kamen Rider, which was followed the college student Takahashi Hango and his quest to defeat the world-conquering Shocker organization. Its popularity has grown, and the original series spawned several sequels and launched the second kaiju boom, also known as the Henshin boom, on Japan television during the early 1970s, impacting the superhero and action-adventure genre in Japan. As we stated before, Kamen Rider is similar to what we know as Power Rangers because each episode follows a very similar formula. The monster of the week is causing some sort of trouble, and the main character needs to morph, or in this case, Henshin, to fight it. And in the tradition of what we know from Power Rangers, there are martial art scenes and flashy special effects, and of course, explosions. But unlike Power Rangers, though, Kamen Rider tends to have much fewer heroes, with most series only having one or two main heroes to the series. Although that did change once we got into the Heisei era. Kamen Rider tends to follow two main gimmicks: the Morpher, which is almost always a belt of some sort. Usually, they also have some form of motorcycle. And now that that's all set up, good lord, that was long. Let's finally talk about the clusterfuck that is Kamen Rider Zeo. So, Kamen Rider Zeo marks the 47th year of the long-running series and is the end of the Heisei era in Japan and is considered the final Heisei Rider. It also marks the 20th anniversary of what is known as the Heisei Riders, so it's treated like a special anniversary season. With that in mind, the writers make it so he could access previous Heisei Rider powers to pay homage to the history of the era, and is actually the second writer to have an anniversary series of this type using a similar gimmick, that first writer being Kamen Rider Decade. Do you know anything about Decade, John?
I've seen a couple of videos for it, but I've never watched it. I do understand how he works, though.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting, like through his story, where they decided like every place he's going where he's meeting the past writers was an AU, and I think that made it a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
Oh, AU means alternate reality. Sorry, I keep on forgetting that. I'm just expecting you guys to understand everything that comes out my mouth. That's not fair. Yeah, it was kind of cool. He got the ability to actually literally turn into the writers. Like the only thing that he maintained of himself was his signature weapon and his belt. But other than that, he was in every way that writer, which was kind of cool. So the condensed story of Zeo is Sango Taku. I'm not gonna. It's a dude, okay? It's a high school kid, and his goal is to become king. And that's just fucking weird. Like, whose life goal is to become king?
Silly Japanese kids, apparently.
Well, one day, this crazy dude called Gates, spelled Geiz, because that's how you fucking spell Gates.
Well, that's how it's pronounced in Japanese.
Or has some of the fandom has called him Gaze because of how it's spelled.
I've never called him that.
Oh, bullshit. We always call him Gaze. Kamen Rider Gaze. Well, he shows up and tries to kill him, the Sango kid, trying to kill him, claiming he will become an evil demon king named Omazeo. Gates is joined by the lowly of the series, the Henshin Hottie, as we say. Tatsumi. How do you say that, John?
Tsukuyomi.
Tsukuyomi, yeah. And they come from the year 2068, where Omazeo has taken over the whole world, and it is currently shit.
Yeah, but Gates really has never actually tried to kill Zeo yet, so...
Well, I don't know, man. Look at the first episode. He clearly tried to kill him. He was in his mech trying to smash him.
Kind of.
I mean, he got over it quicker than we expected, but
Yeah, 30 minutes.
but he has tried to beat the shit out of him more than once.
All I know is that there's been ample opportunity to have killed him, and he hasn't.
Well, just like in the last episode where he said, "Go to sleep," he could have been like, "Forever."
Yeah, or at any time when he's turned around.
Well, Sango is assisted by this crazy fucker called Woes. He's a self-proclaimed prophet who is determined to ensure that he fulfills his destiny. Sango fulfills his destiny and becomes the Demon King, and is given and gives Sango his transformation device. So like he's so hell bent on this kid becoming Omazeo that he's just like Wagamao, which basically translates into my demon lord. Here, take this toy that is going to make us millions of dollars and pretend like you're turning into a superhero.
I mean, he is the best character in the show, though.
I do fucking love Woes. He's great. And I always love how, like, whenever Zeo gets a new form, he's just like, "Behold, Wagamo has obtained fucking build armor," or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, when they had that really long dry spell and he finally got to do it again the couple episodes ago, it was great.
It's just like, "Oh, I miss this." And then Zeo even says, "Ah, it's I'm so nostalgic." Well, as if this shit wasn't already crazy enough, there's another faction in play here, and they're called the Time Jackers. And these little bastards are all about fucking up people's stays, essentially. They have a similar goal to Gates, though. They want to stop him with Zeo. The main difference between these guys and Gates, though, is just stopping him isn't enough. They want to replace him with a rider of their own, and can think of no better way to do that than stealing other riders' powers and making what are called another riders.
They're
Go ahead.
they're probably my biggest problem.
What, the another riders?
Show. No, the Time Jackers.
Yeah.
Because they want to do away with Zeo, but they can stop time, and they don't stop time and just do away with him. Instead, they try to fight him with another rider that is obviously going to be defeated by this guy, because he has to obtain the powers of all the past riders somehow. And this is how he's doing it, but they continue to use the same formula instead of just freezing time and doing any means of killing him.
Well, I think another reason why they keep on pushing to, create another riders and stuff is so the fact that they can have somebody who's more powerful than Zeo, because they just don't want like another rider to just exist. They want him to be badass. And how else can they prove how badass they are than in defeating Zeo? You know what I mean?
Maybe.
I don't know. But anyways, the another riders are basically the monsters of the week. The Time Jackers go back in time to when other Hensei riders were still around, steal their powers, and they do that by basically sealing their powers into an evil ride watch. And I'll explain what the fuck a ride watch is later. But then they just find some random dude and take the evil ride watch and shove it inside. Like, literally shove it into them with the goal of making this new dude their Demon King and having sole control over this dude.
Usually who they get the ride watch to is someone that has some kind of conflict going on at the same time the rider existed.
Yeah, like, it gets weirder as the story progresses. But yeah, essentially, it's not just some random guy on the street. It's some guy they know they could easily manipulate into becoming evil. And basically, each episode goes as follows. The Time Jackers decide which Hensei rider's powers they want to steal. They go back in time, steal them, totally fucking up the timeline, and creating another rider. Zeo and Gates eventually, when Gates gets the stick out of his ass and decides to work with Zeo, goes back in time to gain said rider's power and defeat the another rider. Rinse, lather, repeat, and blammo, you have Kamen Rider Zeo.
Yeah, it's just kind of a washing machine of the same thing for a while.
Yeah, doing the Legendary Rider episodes, they were cool. I mean, it was really awesome to see these actors come back and reprise their roles in some form, but they did kind of feel almost forced. You know what I mean?
Well, the whole problem with it is they're not pushing the narrative of the story, really, throughout the first 16 episodes of the show.
Yeah, they're basically just saying, hey, look, we were able to get these guys back, and hey, look, there's somebody else using their powers in a new, unique way.
Yeah, and it was fine because I enjoyed all the other writers and stuff, but there's not really been any. The plot has not progressed enough, I feel.
Yeah, and like you said, like around episode 16, it finally kicks up, and instead of worrying about what all the other writers are doing now, it's okay, let's focus on Zio and Gates and what they're doing and what that pertains to in the actual story. But
yeah, I think 16's when the other woes shows up, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and the other, well, we'll get to the other woes in a second. But anyways, to explain what a ride watch is, there are basically two types. There's a good one and a bad one. And the bad ones make another riders, and the good ones give Zio and Gates armors based on previous heroes, which in turn lets them gain the power of the other hero. And it's actually pretty fucking cool. Like some of the armors are really inventive and like unique, and some of them are just batshit crazy. Like Gates, not Gates, Gaim. Gaim's armor is fucking weird, but it's really cool. I like it.
I enjoyed the whole transformation for Gaim. It was really good.
Yeah, I like how they emulated his actual transformation from the show, because like whenever Gaim would transform, like you would see a zipper open above his head, and the zipper would like open into another dimension, and out from that dimension would come like this armored orange that would come and slam down on his head and then unfold into his armor.
Lock on. どうすりゃいいんだ。こうか。オレンジって俺
which is essentially what they tried to emulate when Zio got the Gaim armor, and they did it pretty good.
They did do a good job of it.
I really like that. Zio and Gates use the same transformation device. They use this thing called the Ziku driver. The Ziku driver has two slots on either side, and the slot on the left-hand side, well, it depends on how you're looking at it, but the slot on their right is where they put their own unique watches to transform into either Gates or Zio. And then the one on their left is where they put like the Hensei Riders watches on to gain their armor and powers. Me and John both have the Ziku driver ourselves, and I fucking love it.
Oh yeah, the gimmick is great.
Yeah, I love how like I'll try to put in a clip or something here to show you guys what I'm talking about.
ライドウォッチをセット回して変身ライドタイム仮面ライダーデラックス時空ドライバーゲイツライドウォッチも
But essentially he taps the top of the belt and it starts to tilt, and then he gives it a shove and it spins 360 like, you know, a watch going around the clock. And
he winds the watch.
Essentially, yeah. And then, bam, transformation. They get some pretty neat, like, accessories and stuff. Like, I'm not going to lie, I went pretty ham with the toys. I didn't get any of their weapons, but, John, you got the Oh No axe.
I did get the Oh No axe. Amazon had it for too cheap, so I had to buy it.
And the craziest thing about this axe is it literally says, "Oh no!"
And it says, "You, me."
No, it's actually saying stuff in Japanese, but it's close enough to American words that we can just call it the Oh No axe.
Yeah, close
enough. I got some of the stuff that's called Ride Gadgets, which essentially is like little gadgets that like previous writers used, or it tries to emulate some of the things that were unique to that series, and they're pretty cool. Like you got a cell phone gun thing from Kamen Rider Fives. You got a hawk thing from Kamen Rider O's, and
The watermelon.
yeah, the watermelon from Gaim. Which in Gaim, this watermelon thing was a giant mech, and they totally trolled us in the episode because we're expecting it to turn into the giant mech from Gaim, and it's the same size as the toy, and we're just like, the hell. It was pretty funny, man. I was cracking up.
It was funny. I enjoyed it, actually.
So here's the part where we break down the series a little bit. So as we already talked about the Gaim episode a little bit, but I wanted to like break down the series in order to where me and John are, and then we'll give like a retrospective of how we feel about where it's going and what we want from it. So going in order, the first Hensei Rider they bump into is the one that came out right before them, which is Build. And it sets up what we're going to basically be forced to accept for a little while now, where it's like they introduce the fact that they're in this guy's time, and this is where the bad guy came from, and they're going to have to go back and fix it. And it follows more along the story of who is the Another Rider, like who the Time Jackers chose to be the Another Rider, than really the story of Gates and Zio at all.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, I mean, think about it. No, seriously, like when we're watching the episodes, like let's just think back to like the X8 episode. The X8 episode was more about the Another X8 than it was actually about like Gates and Zio at all.
Yeah, I guess. I think there was you really needed to understand him more because the whole thing with him was kind of confusing, anyways.
Well, it's like the Another Rider had more character development in those two episodes, and this by then we're talking like to episode 4, than Gates and Zio have had up to this point, in 2 episodes.
That's true. We still don't really know what's kind of going on. Like, there's no real backstory for Gates, really, other than he came from the future and my parents are dead. My life sucks.
Yeah, that's about it. Like, and his motives just seem so weird because like later on in the story, he's just like, okay, me and Zio are cool. When Tsukumi was like, nah, Zio's not so bad, and Gates is like, no, Zio sucks. He's a horrible person. And now it's like,
but now it's the other way around.
Yeah, total role reversal.
Oh, she's like, we have to kill him now. And Gates is like, no, I'm not so sure about that.
And that was like a big turning point in the series too. Just skipping ahead to that point, the character Zio, he gave up his powers. He's just like, no, I don't want to become a Demon King. I understand what you guys are saying, and he let Gates destroy his belt. Like he completely gave up his powers. And I think in that gesture of like, I don't want this future to happen, like Gates finally realized this kid, even though he could become Omazeo, at this moment is not Omazeo, and I don't want him. I don't want to hurt him.
Yeah, I've got my own theories about the whole thing, but we won't go into that because that's too far down the rabbit hole for today.
Okay. Well, I honestly think that it's the same conundrum as like if you go back in time and meet Hitler, and like when he's a kid and he's not a horrible like genocidal maniac. It's just like if you have a chance to like befriend him and kind of push him in the right direction, and then he shows you that he's able to learn and change, you might not kill him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but what if you going back in time and doing that stuff with Hitler is actually what made Hitler become Hitler? But you don't know that.
It's pretty fucking trippy, man.
Yeah, it's like, what if Gates going back and helping Zio get all this stuff actually makes him become Omazeo? If he had never gone back in time and done all this, maybe it actually would never happen.
It's pretty deep. But they've been fucking with the timeline so much lately. I think we just need to accept that nothing's gonna make sense.
To be honest, I just think it's supposed to happen. Like, it happened like that the first time it happened. You know what I mean? Like, I think everything that's happening was supposed to happen.
So you're saying like Omazeo is going to happen no matter what, and the whole
Yes.
reason Omazeo is going to happen is because these idiots went back in time in the first place.
Yes.
Huh. But see, the only part that doesn't add up to me in that is the next bit we're going on to is woes. Because because we've already talked about like how woes is Sango, aka Zio's, like basically lackey and stuff. Well, a second version of this guy shows up from an alternate timeline. Because when Zio first decided to give away his powers, he accidentally created a brand new timeline. And that new timeline created another woes. And this guy comes from a different future where Omazeo was defeated by Gates, and all crazy shit is happening. So basically, that whole act created enough alternate realities that now they're kind of seeping into the one that leads to Omazeo.
But we already know that the other woes gets the rider powers, so maybe that was supposed to happen.
I don't know. Well, and this other woes, instead of like all about being Zio, he's all about like helping Gates, and he actually has the power to become a Kamen Rider himself, called Kamen Rider Woes. And his armors that he gets are from 3 riders that should not exist. Like, they're 3 riders from the future that, and now after the last episode, it seems like they were created by Sango, like himself. Like, remember at the end of the Kikai episode, they basically said that Zio's power is becoming so strong, he's pushing into alternate realities, and he made Kikai exist.
Well, maybe he made woes exist. The other one.
I think, you know what, I kind of agree with you, because like when he was giving away his power, and he wanted to stop Omazeo that bad, I think like his power manifested in such a way that in the same way that it created Kikai, it created woes.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are so confused right now, Kikai was one of the 3 new riders introduced because of this alternate timeline. There was Kamen Rider Kikai, Kamen Rider Quiz, and Kamen Rider Shinobi. We're not going to get too crazy into those 3, but just there, now you know. So where we are now is all that shit's led up to now, and Kamen Rider Zio has even more power because he accessed the Zio 2 ride watch. And he did that by meeting a Hensei rider, Ryuga, which was from Kamen Rider Ryuki. And it's a long story, but just know there's a mirror world. And Zio went into the mirror world, saw the evil version of himself, like his evil twin mirror version, and by accepting him and the fact that Omazeo is a part of him, he got the ability to upgrade into Kamen Rider Zio 2. And Tsukumi and Gates are seeing Omazeo's power finally resonating through Zio himself. And that's why Tsukumi is like, no, we need him to die now.
Which doesn't make sense because he hasn't shown... I don't understand why she wants to kill him now, because it doesn't make sense because he still hasn't shown any sign of wanting to be a bad person yet. If the whole theory, that maybe he isn't really a bad guy or we can change him is going on, jumping from one boat to the other doesn't make sense yet. Like, he still hasn't done anything.
Yeah, and I don't think they don't even know about the fact that he accepted his dark side to gain the powers. So it's like, you're right, like her instant, like, I hate you-ness is a little bit unfounded.
Yeah, I don't think it's there yet, but we'll see. We'll see.
The only other thing that we actually skipped and I forgot to mention is Kamen Rider Decade. He actually showed up. So the other anniversary dude showed up in the series, and his powers when Zio uses them are just so fucking weird. Because he uses Decade's powers to get Decade armor, but then he uses someone else's powers at the same time, and it gets it. I don't even want to talk about it. It's just so crazy.
Yeah, and I don't know. Who knows what Decade's really doing? Maybe Decade already knows what's going to happen too. so he just doesn't care.
Yeah, because like when Decade shows up, he makes it abundantly clear that not only can he travel to alternate realities like he did in his series, but he can travel through time at will. So he's kinda almost as OP as Omazeo, but he just doesn't give a shit. He just does whatever he wants, which I respect.
Maybe Decade is actually Zio's father.
Or maybe Decade is actually Omazeo.
I'm not gonna go that deep and say that, but
I don't know.
If I'm saying anybody's Omazeo, it's the another Zio that's gonna be shown. Like, he's actually Omazeo.
Yeah, in this week's episode, which neither I or John haven't watched yet, the another writer that's going to show up is another Zio. And we're really interested to see that because traditionally, when another writer shows up, that current writer loses their powers. So I'm interested to see how they play on that aspect of things.
And we already know about Gate 5 coming too, but we won't talk about that either, I guess.
We could talk about Gates Revive a little bit, because like the whole purpose of like Woes coming from the future was to get the ride watches of Kikai Shinobi and Quiz to create the Gates Revive power.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that too. It's like maybe Zio knew he wouldn't be able to defeat himself
right
as another rider, so he had to create Gates Revive to defeat another Zio.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense going down the rabbit hole of like Zio is the whole reason these future writers exist, and even Woes to some extent. If that really is the case, then like this was for the sole purpose of creating Gates Revive to help his friend, because he does consider Gates a friend, be able to stop him in case he ever does go Oma.
Yeah,
I like that. That's a really like interesting take on it, and I like that a lot. That really does like break it down in a way I never thought of. But we are running super longer than I expected for this episode. We were going to talk about Ryu Soldier, but we'll just save that for next time. And we'll also talk about like the Super Sentai Battle Royale series that's going on. That'll probably be our next episode. What do you think, John? You want to talk about Sentai next time?
Sure.
And me and John are going to be watching Ryu Soldier once it comes out, so we can talk about that pretty regularly too.
We will be doing that.
But
it'll be my first step into actually watching Sentai.
And hopefully it doesn't suck.
We'll see.
Yeah, unfortunately Sentai has been on the decline, but again, that's for next week's episode. So, thanks for joining us in Super Taku Bros. And like, comment, subscribe, all that fun shit. And as I've always stated, if you're following Jolemonus, the best place to follow me is Facebook. I always update on facebook.com/Jolemonus. You want to see what I'm doing on the side in between episodes and whatnot, check that out there. John, is there anything you want to pimp before the episode ends?
No, I'm not really working on my YouTube anymore, so I think we'll be okay with that.
Well, if you want to check out some of John's older stuff, check out Reckless Johnny on YouTube. He did some stuff with his kids, scared the shit out of his daughters. It's kind of hilarious.
I did a couple times.
Yeah, you sure did. All right, well, thanks for joining us, and we will see you in the next episode. Hadouces.
Later.